So, yeah,
Okay, I got it.
all right. And I will also invite Mr. Sorry. I will also invite Mr. Mudachikwa Eric from REMA. Eric is the Division Manager of Environment Analytics and Lake Kivu Monitoring. And also, I would like to invite Mr. Aimable Gahigi, Director General, Meteo Rwanda. Then Ms. Caroline Reyes, Country Representative, GGGI, most welcome. And then Dr. Mamadou Bamba from EMS. No, over there. And myself. Philbert Nsengimba from GIZ. So, our discussion today is not going, this time is not going to be far from what you have discussed already. It's about climate change, it's about science, it's about how we generate that, how we manage those, how we collaborate, and how we integrate them in our decision making. Yeah, so I would like to start from Dr. Mamadou Bamba. You know him already. He has been on stage from AIMS. And Doctor, thank you very much for your presentation. And I understand your disappointment that in the last IPCC we didn't have and see Rwanda covered enough. And that's partly because you were not here yet, and now you are here. So my question is now, what are you doing to improve on that? I mean, so how is AIMS, how yourself are working with different stakeholders to ensure that now we cover that gap, or we use data, packaged data to ensure that it's presentable, and in the end we have it represented in IPCC?
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Yeah, actually, during the last... Yeah, okay, like this, okay. So I started it in Ouagadougou, and then I finalized it in Rwanda. So I joined Rwanda in 2019, and the report was published in 2021. So what we actually do at AIMS, so our research is actually very relevant for policymakers and for practitioners, because we conduct a lot of stakeholder engagements. We attend to conferences, talk to policymakers. Conferences, symposiums. And then we also follow the global debate on climate change, the conferences, like COPs and so on. And from there, we build initiatives, we build programs, okay, research programs. And then, so basically what we do in those kind of things is, once we identify the research gap, we use multiple data sets that can be observations, that can be climate models data where it is relevant. Apply different mathematical models and physical models including, of course, statistical models like AI, machine learning. And then our objective would be then to build scenarios, to build robust data sets to be able to inform sectors like agriculture, health, water resources, infrastructure, biodiversity, and ecosystems. So that's basically what we do. And then when we doing this kind of thing, like I said, we make it robust in such a way that if somebody else would like to do the same thing in the same area, we'll find the same results. And that's very important and also significant, because sometimes if your results is not significant, it is not worth using it to take action. Basically, that's what we do. And then we also undertake scientific publications. Myself, my postdocs, my PhD students, in order to fill some of the gaps we've been seeing in the Assessment Report 6, in such a way that Assessment Report 7 will have more information related when it comes to Africa. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Doctor, are you available to the young people here for any technical support?
Yeah, definitely. Right now I'm having, I don't even know the number of PhD students I have. So maybe it's like 7 or 8. And I think 4 of them are Rwandan. So definitely I think I'm available for capacity building, for even lecturing, because I like to lecture, I like to share knowledge. That's my passion. I'm not supposed to do it because I'm a researcher, but I'm doing it anyway. And yeah, mentoring, lecturing, supervising, co-authorship of articles, yes, definitely. So I like to build capacity. Yeah.
Thank you very much. Once again, thank you. We are happy to have here in Rwanda. So yeah, then I proceed to Mr. Eric from REMA. Eric, it seems like REMA is in the interface between, policymakers and researchers. So the question is, how is REMA doing? I mean, we heard a lot from Foster, but concretely, how is REMA doing to ensure that there is a collaboration between these policymakers and researchers? Of course, you mentioned Dr. Polto and all that, but yeah.
Thank you. As it has been mentioned before in the keynote speak by Deputy Director General, REMA involves different researchers and policymakers in different study that we are conducting. So as we are a regulator in a climate change environment, we do different study, different research. We are using, for example, today's some of the things that are on stake is the carbon market. So this, we use different research, different capacity, but above this, we also involve stakeholders as policymakers to make sure that they understand, first of all, what we need to do and what we are going to do. Since what we are doing as a technical need to be translated into policy, and then this policy to reflect exactly what is on a global or regional and then a national level and understanding. So having different scientific people, researchers that are involved in climate change and different point of view, whatever we are trying to make a policy or a strategy, we first of all go for understanding the awareness of what we are doing and the capacity building for different stakeholders from university, from institutions, from private sector, from NGOs. Most of these are here to support, because the climate, whatever we are doing, and are doing it for REMA, we are also doing for the country, we are also doing for civil societies, which are the one who will come and then implement what we are doing as a policy or strategy. So mainly what we are doing and REMA is to make sure that whatever is technically on regional and national, international level need to be communicated properly to the implementer who are scientific and policymakers and different private sector and the civil society. So this is done through capacity building, through workshop like this, through interconnection with different local and international scientists who can come in Rwanda and then to try to make sure that the capacity building and the knowledge is transferred from the understanding and zero understanding what we, as I may say, to a level that people can understand the basic, and then to make sure that the basic that we are having now can move to make it to the policy implementation and preparation.
Yeah, thank you very much. And I think with the knowledge portal, it's an example that there is already something we should make use of, right? Yeah, thank you. Then if I proceed to Emma, Director, Meteor Rwanda is one of the known institutions, like even villages, they know Meteor Rwanda because Meteor Rwanda provide information on what's going to happen tomorrow in terms of rainfall. So it means you have a lot of data, you know, through from the weather stations here and there. So is this data available at all? Is it shareable? We have scientists here who may be eager to hear from you how they can access those. And how do you proactively ensure that the data is shared? I mentioned proactively.
Thank you very much. As by the mandate, Meteor Rwanda, it is not only in charge of collecting the data, but we are also the custodian. Data are available, first of all. And I'm sure most of the participants have, in one or two ways, used those kind of data sets. We do have a good network of stations, but in addition, depending on the source, we have to diversify how we do collect the data. And also, there are some which are being accessed through international or regional cooperation. As you know, meteorological data, some of them, they are recorded or collected beyond our boundaries, but when it comes to use, everyone has to get access to those data sets. Coming back to our institution, we do have a data bank where we keep all the available data, either collected here in Rwanda or abroad. And then from those, from the data bank, there is a way we grant access. I can just, it's in two ways. We can just have access. As you mentioned, how can we be proactive? Some are, you can just serve yourself. It's a self-service where you can just get access without even having to come or call or make a request. There is a portal called Map Room, map as a map, and the room where you can just keep something. From our website, you can just have access to the map room. It's a collection of the data within the country at point data or even at grid data. And there are also some analysis. You can just have access to the data, but if you do not have some skills to make some analysis, there is a way you can just extract the products from the data. I know most of, not limited to the researchers, but even some staff or who would like to make some reports. They are not having that time to make such analysis, but they can just access to some information product which can just be used for during making their reports. But coming back to the data, there are some data sets which can be accessed without without any request, and there are other which are subject to make an online request. Back in the years, we used to have to make a written request or coming to the office, but now it's an online request. Recently, even there's some access through IREMBO. It's a new one, but normally the one people just use to, it's to go to our website. There is where it is mentioned on online services. And then under online services, you can just make an online request depending on the parameter, the time you need the data, and then the location of those data you would like to have access to. Briefly, it's in two ways. You can serve yourselves or you can make an online request. In addition, once you are not familiar of making some analysis using meteorological data, you can be assisted. I think briefly it's what I can just share in terms of data being collected.
Thank you very much, Director. But you know, since morning we have heard, and that's true, that decision making without data is we are using the word dangerous, but it's not good. So how is Meteo actually ensuring that climate change decision making in Rwanda is well informed?
You mentioned it well. You have, we, not you, we have to make informed decisions. There's no way we can just make informed decisions without data. Data is key because even to have information, the information is being generated from the data, through analysis of the data. If you make a decision without a base from the information, I think you are not going, you are heading to a wrong direction. We can just use an example. When you are just making a plan without all needed information, at the end, when you are going to start an execution of whichever project, the percentage of failure will be high. But once you are not in position to make that analysis, and then you look for that assistance, we have researchers, they can just give you an information through analysis of the data, and then it can easily inform the decision you are going to make, either at planning level or when you are just executing whichever project. We have many examples from various sectors. Before we are just having an example from agriculture, but if you can just have an example in infrastructure, you have a project of constructing a bridge. If a bridge can last for 100 years, there is a need to know the background in terms of the weather and climate on that location. In addition to the location, you have to consider also the upstream part of that location. In addition, if the bridge lasts for 100 years, you have to make a projection. How it will be looking like, that location and the upstream, in the next 100 years. All that plan rely mainly to meteorological data in the past and in the future. Once you fail to have that information, you are, I think, even nowadays, even the development partners are not willing to provide any kind of funding, depending on the risk associated to that project. It is not only limited to one sector, it's across all the sectors. We need to keep in mind about how are we going to plan for a project or a program based on information and data being generated by Met Services. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Director. So if I may proceed to Professor Beth Kaplan from Center of Excellence in Biodiversity and Natural Resources. You've been such for quite a long time, and I personally can witness that. And I remember around 15 plus years when you have also been my teacher. So you've been in research not only in climate change but in biodiversity in Rwanda, and in one way or another you may have encountered the needs for interdisciplinary collaboration. So now, how can that, I mean, that collaboration play an improving climate research in Rwanda? And maybe even, Doctor, if you have an addition to that, because this is quite important, you may want to add after.
Yeah? Oh, good. Okay. Thank you. Thank you for the question. And it's always great to see students who have now gone on to go so far. So that's the best thing we can experience in life as a teacher. So in answering this question about the importance of interdisciplinary collaboration, I wanted to focus on the idea of co-benefits. I think that's a way of answering it. So when we talk about climate change and either understanding climate adaptation strategies or resilience, or if we talk about mitigation, we don't have to consider biodiversity. In fact, that's the way it's often been done. So with mitigation, you might think, oh, we should just plant the trees that will absorb, we think, the most carbon, grow the fastest, easiest to grow. We know the most about them. Let's get them out there, and then we can absorb a lot of carbon. Or with climate adaptation strategies, we can say, okay, we need to deal with erosion or vulnerable areas, gullies, etc. So we need to put plants out there, trees and shrubs, to control the erosion. And in fact, it's a good example here in Rwanda where this strategy for climate adaptation or ecosystem-based adaptation approaches, you can see a lot of bamboo planted along riparian zones. And I'm just going to put it out there, and some of you have heard me say this, that bamboo is from China, a lot of it, and it is not a typical riparian zone vegetation for Rwanda. So co-benefits means that we can address climate adaptation or we can address climate mitigation by considering also biodiversity. And that's in part so important because we are in a biodiversity crisis at the same time that we are in a climate crisis. So I remember Bamba showed pre-industrial 18-something. We use the same metric or benchmark to look at the change in ecosystem cover. And for example, in Rwanda, we have lost a tremendous amount of natural ecosystem types in the country due to agriculture, forest loss, etc. And we can look at that and overlay it with climate change attributes. And we can ask questions about how the loss of biodiversity or the presence of biodiversity can mediate or moderate climate change and also contribute to climate mitigation strategies, because we are trying to address the loss of biodiversity. And there's a lot of statistics showing how many species we are losing annually, far above. The same with climate change, this incredible drastic graph temperature increase. The same with the loss of species. In the last 100 years, the number of species we are losing. And we are sitting here in a biodiversity hotspot. We are still finding new species in Rwanda. And we are dealing with climate change. So why not put them together and look at co-benefits when we're addressing climate adaptation and climate mitigation? And that demands interdisciplinary collaboration. Ecosystem scientists, biodiversity scientists, we have to tap into traditional knowledge, social sciences, and we need to talk with people working with climate data. Matteo Rwanda, Bamba's research team, other groups, even I've talked with people at Internet of Things, IoT, the Center of Excellence in Research, IoT. They're doing really interesting work with drones, documenting what's happening on the ground, using AI. So there's really interesting things we could be doing if we had more interdisciplinary collaboration to make this link the co-benefits and really pay attention to both climate change and biodiversity. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you very much. Ed? Yeah, I think she's definitely right. And to give an example, yeah, to give an example, let's see how IPCC have been working. For example, the volume 1 will be, working group 1 will be physical science basis, working group 2 will be impact, adaptation, and vulnerability, working group 3, mitigation of climate change. So before these 3 working groups, they were not talking to each other. So right now, there are inter-working group meetings all the time. It's like we cannot work separately, so we have to work together because climate change is transdisciplinary or interdisciplinary or multidisciplinary. So I don't know which one we use, but for sure, only one discipline cannot address climate change. So all the disciplines have to come together, all the disciplines. Mathematicians, they will come, data scientists, they will come, physicists, they will come, natural scientists, they will come. Social scientists, they also have to come together and we address climate change together. So that's how things works. 30 seconds to talk about data issues. Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much, DG Meteo. Of course, data is very important if you want to inform decision. So I want to just give you one example. At the Green Climate Funds, if your climate rationale is not good, they will reject your proposal. So most people, we think those are the Green Climate Funds are just admin people and they don't understand climate science. That is wrong. They understand very well everything related to data issue, everything related to robust climate information. They understand that. Yeah, so just make sure that if your data is not good, they will reject it because they know whether the data is good or not. They know whether the information you are providing is good or not. Because climate rationale is just what? This is the climate change problem I'm having. This is the climate change issues in my region. This is how it impacts this sector, that sector, and this is how I'm proposing solutions. So that's basically a Green Climate Fund's proposal. So if the climate rationale now is wrong, so everything else is wrong, okay? So data is very important. One day I read a report somewhere, and I see that person or that group of person was having a hard time to actually find how much temperature is going to change in a country. So at the end they say, that amount, that change of temperature, that value, how much temperature is going to change, is not important. What is important is temperature is going to increase, but that's very wrong. Because if you don't know how much temperature is going to increase, why do we put global warming level scenarios? Why do we have all those limitations? Why do we have some threshold to assess heat waves? Why do you have some threshold to assess other things like drought and potential evapotranspirations and all those kind of things? So data is very important, and robust data is very important. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Doctor. And indeed, you touched on the issue of using the data in project development and implementation, and that exactly leads me to asking Ms. Caroline Reyes from GGGI. GGGI, we know in Rwanda you are involved in different fields, implementing different projects in agriculture, energy, urban wetland, ecosystem restoration, but also at policy level, capacity development. We meet in one meetings or another. So you need data to take decisions in project implementation and development. How do you do that? And maybe we can also touch into how you collaborate with the data holders to ensure that you have accurate and updated data.
Sure, thank you so much. Maybe just for those who don't know GGGI, we are an intergovernmental organization. We have about 50 member countries across the globe. And our role is to serve as a trusted advisor to those countries so that they can accelerate their transition towards a low carbon, climate resilient economy. And we do that by supporting them across different work streams. We support with policy. At the policy level, we support in translating those policies into investment plans, and we mobilize investment, and also we implement projects on the ground. And so when we look at the different sectors or projects that we're implementing in Rwanda, this is very much aligned with the strategic priorities that we have as an organization. And those priorities are all defined by the climate science. If you look at the IPCC Assessment Report 6, for instance, which highlights a number of measures that the world has to take, has to put in place to have rapid, deep, and sustained greenhouse gas emission reductions, whether it's from solar energy deployment, promoting electric mobility, promoting compact city development. All of these are our priorities. So our priorities are very much aligned and informed by what the climate science is telling us. And we ensure that alignment by having robust climate experts, not just climate experts, people who can serve as bridge builders between the climate science and the policy world. So we have what we call a Climate Action and Inclusive Development Unit at headquarters, who is tracking the evidence, the science, informing what countries can do and contextualizing them. So that's really key to how we operate, linking that science to what countries can implement on the ground, what they can do in their policies. In addition to those programmatic solutions, of course, we partner with different institutions in the country. I would be remiss to be sitting here with DG Meteo Rwanda and also Eric from REMA and not mention that a few years back we worked together on a GCF readiness project where GGGI supported in improving the weather forecasting system to ensure that we're able to deliver real-time information. So we're not just using the data, we're also working together with those who are generating the data to improve their capacity, to ensure that they have the right tools and systems, and that's really key to the work that we do. So I would just add that I mentioned the work that we do around investment mobilization, and it's really key as we're looking at this bridge between climate science and policy. I would like to extend it even to practice, right? Because there's a lot of knowledge that's coming from the policy world and the practice world, and we're part of that. So we also do a lot of, we put a lot of effort into generating knowledge ourselves, developing knowledge from countries that we're investing in, that we're working in, to see what's working and under what condition that's working, so that that can also inform replication and scale up in other countries. And that effort, we work very closely with different research institutions. In Rwanda, we work with individual researchers to help us assess the impact of some of the solutions that we're deploying, such as EVs, for instance, looking at the impact on greenhouse gas emission. We're exploring partnering with different research institutions to deploy a first pilot on agrivoltaics, recognizing that we can be there to support with the policy, informing investment mobilization, but that the research institutions also bring their share and contribution to the success of these projects. So those relationships are there, those partnerships are there. We also partner with research institutions globally to look at innovations. I think Professor Kaplan touched on the issue of digital solutions and AI. We've partnered with a university in Hungary, University of Pannonia, to develop a simulation tool backed by AI that will help us to measure the co-benefits, SDG co-benefits of climate action, climate mitigation and adaptation measures. So I think those are very cherished relationships. They're very diverse ways we partner with research institutions, and that also ensures that the work that we do is robust, scientifically backed. And the reason why that's really critical is because without that robustness, we're not able to get the support of the policy makers and also the investment. I think somebody in the room previously mentioned private sector investment, and without that data, without that sound science behind it, you won't get that investment mobilization, which is absolutely critical.
Yeah, thank you very much, Caroline. And what I like in your notes is that you use the international network that you have to make sure that you have very sustainable and sound approaches that you can bring even in Rwanda, and also that you are not involved in consuming data, but also in generating data as well. Sometimes you can think that we are speaking in abstract, but there's something going on already, which is NDC 3.0. And maybe this is something we can already see how we use data to ensure that we have a very solid NDC 3.0. Eric, how are we doing that?
Sure. We now on the process of reviewing our NDCs. So the NDC, they are reviewing after 5 years. So what we have now, our reviewed NDC, we started the revision of NDC. So this is also a document that is showing the progress on how far we are in mitigating and adapting on climate change. So it's also backed with robust data in different sector. We have a different sector where we are looking at on the NDC preparation, on agriculture, and land use, and forestry, and then so this main sector, they are there to indicate where we can have more vulnerable sector and how we can mitigate that. And then this also it doesn't come just from nowhere. It comes from the data set, it comes from the methodology data set, it comes from the understanding of the science and interpretation of those data. So the NDC, as it is prepared now, it shows us from now on to the target is to go up to 2035. So this will give us the will show us the new target where we going to tackle now from 2030 to 2035, and then explain and then give us some of the indicators that are really contributing more on the emission. And from those indicators and from this data, that's where we come up with the private sector, with mobilizing our fund, mobilizing of a project and fund that will mitigate and they will try to make sure that the impact will be reduced throughout this time to make sure that we reach our target. As Prof. Bamba was explaining, is when you make your project without a backup of for data set, the understanding, the rationale of your project is not really important, and that people doesn't take it as serious as it should be. So we need to mention that also an NDC as a national strategic document is the one that will give us and it will help us to understand where can we just go for research, for example. If we are an institution, a high learning institution, and then we find like our NDCs are requesting us to, if we need to reduce this much, how can our research institution, how can our private sector can come in to make sure that we support the government. Together with the government, it's interconnection, and the reliability of the linkage of science and the policy. That's where we come up and say, okay, if the university, ex-university, for example, come up with a study that show up how can we reduce more, how can we make a bankable or a fundable project that will help to achieve this target, where we know that, for example, X sector are more implementing and are more contributing to the GHG emission. So this is where we found ourselves by preparing this to make sure that we need to be really updated on the methodology, on the data set, and then on the global aspect. So there is a poster behind there. It says, think global and act local. So we need to think global on the global perspective, because when we are trying to reduce our emission in Rwanda, it's not only for Rwanda perspective, it's also for a global perspective. So it needs everyone in his corner to make sure that he align with that, he understand what is the NDC, and he understand where we need to go so that he can contribute as little as he can. From your home house, you can contribute to the reduction of the emission in Rwanda.
Thank you very much, Eric. When is NDC 3.0 going to be out again, quickly?
Yeah, we are almost at the last stage of we have approved the preliminary data, and then by this June, the NDC 3 will be out. Good,
thank you very much. You see, something is happening already. So, to the public, by the way, it's a rare chance to have all these people in one group, so should have specific or general, please feel free to ask. I will give you a chance to 1 or 2 or 3. And also to the people online, we can also have 1 or 2 questions. But as we rewind, I have a question to everybody. We understood the challenge, what we need now, what can we do? So maybe start from far end. How do we environment? What are conditions that need to be in place such that we ensure that we collect our data, we package them, and at the end of the day, we use the data for decision making. If you still have 1 minute, what are you bringing on board as an organization? So we start from far end, but everybody can have 1 or 2 minutes to react on that.
I think that's a very important question. I think for us, I mean, I think it really boils down to communication, right? We have a lot of climate science at the global level, at the national level, but how are you communicating that to decision makers? I know we talked a lot about the REMA climate portal. I'm very proud to say GGGI consistently uploads on that portal. We like to be there. But also, let's be honest, the policy decision makers are not always reading those reports. So how do you distill the information from the climate science in a way that's digestible? Highlighting not just the risks and the impact, but really looking at the solutions value chain. So what can the country do, under what circumstances, what would be more efficient, and also being very sensitive to timelines, right? Decision makers, yes, they like to think long term, but they're also very much in the very immediate short term. So how do you communicate that information around the potential choice of the landscape of choice, the landscape of interventions that they can implement in the short, medium, and long term? So our role as GGI is very much to bridge that gap by facilitating that communication, distilling those messages. And I think that's an area where we can do a lot more. I think Eric also talked about how everybody has an individual role and responsibility. So when we think about communication beyond the policy makers, how can we communicate about climate change and the actions that can be taken in a way that will inspire action from everybody, from residents? How can we communicate so that the media also, that has a key subject, can understand? Sometimes it can be a bit intimidating. So I would say one thing we can do is really working on that communication.
Thank you. Maybe I can answer by putting some comments in about what we have been doing in the Center of Excellence in Biodiversity and Natural Resource Management. It's a research institution at the University of Rwanda. It's also a UNESCO Category 2 research institution. And in this center, we have developed the Rwanda Biodiversity Information System in collaboration with REMA and the Ministry of Environment. And this is a platform that provides biodiversity information in a common standard format that feeds back and forth to GBIF, the Global Biodiversity Information Facility. So now a lot of the data are available that even come from small studies and reports, even that some of you students do. All those data, observation records of biodiversity, that's all freely, openly available. Anybody can access it. And can you imagine when you start linking that to time series data, say, of climate change across the country, because we have data that can go back very far in time, and you can look at the presence of different species. We also have the ecosystem type map up there in that platform, which it can again be overlaid with climate change information to start to understand how ecosystems and biodiversity may change over time with climate change, what we know about the change in temperature and precipitation over time. And we have also digitized the National Herbarium of Rwanda. So an herbarium is, I know that sometimes that can be a little bit confusing for people. It's a collection of dried plants, and maybe that sounds really boring, but they are actually records. They're specimen records across the country of plant species that used to exist. And those plant species were part of communities, plant communities, and they can represent a signal in the environment for what kind of environment and climate used to be there, because plants assemble and come together in communities around the environmental parameters. So those records go back very early. I think the oldest record is 1915. And there's over 20,000 specimens entirely digitized. And this is also a fantastic record that can be combined with climate science to really start looking at how ecosystems in Rwanda are changing over time and how we can do better at adaptation and inform policy and strategies.
Thank you very much. Allow me to start with a partnership, not starting at this point where we are just using how to use the data. How can we have that journey of data collection together, rather than mentioning there is a need to have data? Who is collecting the data? Who is helping someone who is collecting the data? I think sometimes you can understand there is some missing data. Without knowing the journey someone collecting data is just taking. I think through partnership is key, but it should start with a good starting point when we are collecting the data. For instance, as Prof was just mentioning, they can just be collecting the data specific to some limited use, if it is for biodiversity. But someone from another field will be coming to the center looking for some data. They say, no, you did not collect this kind of the data, and then I need urgently those data. We shall just reverse how we think to use the data, and then start with, if I will be using the data, am I collecting also the data? In order to fill in the gaps we do have through our partnership. I can just use some example. If from the reports we have been seeing, or by experience, we can just have in mind someone will need this kind of the data. But am I going to be accurate, like someone who will be looking for those data? We do have a good data set, but we are just thinking it is not enough, especially even temporary. I can just mention about the relationship we do have with, it is not a luxury. It's somehow, when considering the nature of weather and climate, it is mandatory to have partners. For a kind of reference, the World Meteorological Organization, Rwanda became member in 1963. But among the UN agencies, the WMO is qualified as the firstborn, is the oldest, I think. And then it was built through partnership. And then you can just get access to available data. And then when you are a member, you are also have an obligation to share some data. And that is at international level, but coming back to our national level, we can first of all be glad how we are just gathered here physically, and that other just connected online. Everyone has and expertise which can be shared, but also we are going to learn within some hours coming. I can see some posters. We are going even to learn from others. I think this it is a good network which shows how far we are with partnership. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I think on my side, and I think what we need to really be doing now is to not fear, to interact between scientific and policymakers and other institutions. We mostly find that researchers are in their corners and they don't really interact with the policymakers. Otherwise, there is misunderstanding, we see misinterpretation of researchers and then policy makers or institution, public institution. So what I can emphasize here is to let everyone on his part to contribute exactly what he can contribute to make sure that the research in the country, what we have seen today in the presentation of Prof. Bamba is really alarming. When you find like, we have some posters out there, and they're very good posters, and then very good topics that can be published. But when you look on the international journals, you don't find climate data on Rwanda. Yet, people here are doing locally. Why don't they contributing to that? So, and another thing is the government institution and we are also doing document, very good research, very good studies, but they are not published. They are remain on the website, they remain in the office, they are published locally. But if we need to make sure that what we are doing today is really important, just if anyone, any researcher can go to our portal, to the website from Ministry of Environment, from REMA and elsewhere, and then find a topic, a document, a report. Why don't you just come and say, I have this, I can do the publication. Do you have, can we publish on this data? Do you have this data set so that I can publish it? And to make sure that you don't even need to make it real, because the report is there. Just put it in the format of a research model and then the publication so that you can also be recognized as a report that has been done. Otherwise, even if when you look on other document, when we mention the report, we don't mention as a research report. We mention it as a document that has been written in the office. So, which is something that I really need to let researchers in here and outside to come up with this willingness of doing research on anything that can help to make sure, that can help to put on spot what we have, data we have. Also coming up with proposals, what you have done here, I think doing this research, next time we can improve this in this way. We have different research that are periodic, the NDC, climate change vulnerability, the climate state of environment. Most of these reports are published and they are there out there. But how do we make sure that we use them to for the science, for the research perspective, and for the institution? So the student, if I may say that, so does our student understand what is the NDC? If they come up from the school, do they know at least the target we have? Do they know at least on a climate perspective, what is the country perspective, what the country vision in reducing the climate change impact? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair, and thank you very much, colleague. Before I actually answer the question, I just would like to say one word for Meteo Rwanda. So actually, from my whole experience of working with different Met services, Meteo Rwanda is one of the few Met services that share data to research scientists and students for free. And that's very important. Yeah. So thank you very much for your collaboration. Yeah. And then I would like to echo what Eric just said. Now coming to the question. Yeah. So, of course, so before policymakers, scientists, we don't talk each other. Everyone is in his corner. Even I remember my early days as a research scientist, I was just focusing on things that matters for me, like research questions, all right? And I didn't mind about what actually policymakers need or what they want or whatever. I was just like research questions. These are research questions, good research questions. I can make a very big publication on it, so let me just work on it. So that's how I was thinking. And then when I'm back in Africa, I realized that policymakers, of course, they need us, but we don't talk each other. So I got some contacts at UNECA, UN Economic Commission of Africa, and I got some contact at AU. And I was telling them, listen, try to do this. Every year, put policymakers, decision makers, and scientists, practitioners in a room like this, and then let them talk, okay? So policymakers, they will understand what and how the scientists are working. So the scientists, they will understand what the policymakers need, and especially the time frame they need it. And that's very, very, very important. So nowadays, things have improved because we have CCDA, Climate Change and Development in Africa. And then we have ACNES, African Group of Negotiated Expert Support, convening a lot of workshops where he puts in the room, they put in the room like scientists, negotiators, and practitioners, and so on. So that's excellent. That's a way to go. Okay, so that's we can benchmark that. So that's one thing. Okay, so and at that time, I was, without knowing it, telling them to open dialogue channel between policymakers and research scientists. Right. So the second thing, that was one. So the second thing is, if anytime we have to implement a project or we have to develop a proposal, so it's very important to go and see policymakers and tell them, for example, what disease are you interested in? Okay, so do we need to do malaria in Rwanda? Or do we need to do waterborne disease in Musanze or something like that? Because that's key, and then they will tell you exactly what are the priorities in the country, how the policies are, consult the policies, and you will have your priorities. And then you can develop your proposals according to that. And for sure, you already have, without even conducting any research yet, your results will be uptaken by the policymakers. And that's very, very important. So the third thing, and this is where I will end, is to build credibility, okay, of the institutions. Like if you have a research institutions or capacity building institutions or whatever institution you have, it must be credible, okay? So if you build this credibility, like you have a lot of references, like providing robust data, robust information, skilled in modeling and all of that. So the policymakers are the one who will approach you and say, hey, we want to do this. Do we have a model on this? Can we build a model on this? We have this data. How can we model it and find some solutions for this problem and for that problem? Do you have research data or do you have research results on this? Often it's just a phone call. Do you have research data or research results on this, so that we can inform our policy, because we are developing a new policy, this, and that. And, or even international organizations like Green Climate Funds can approach you and say, hey, let's sign an MOU because we've been using you to improve climate rationals of many countries. So let's make the collaboration formal. And that is very, very important. You can only achieve this when the institution is credible, all right? So policymakers approach you, or you approach policymakers to be sure that the results of your program, initiative, or intervention will be taken into account in policy, or we just meet and try to understand each other, what the other one is doing. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you very much for providing tangible, concrete way forward. I think the ideas are turned around communication, stakeholders engagement, to make use of existing databases such as Herbarium and others, to not fear each other, you know, to ensure that scientists talk, but also they talk with policymakers, then building credibility. We take note of that, of course. So if you may allow to have one or two questions from the public, please. If any. Oh, I can see two. Can we have two only? Okay. So maybe let's have three.
Thank you. My name is Jeannette Mukangango.
Sorry, can you ensure you know who you address the question to? But if it's to everybody, also say it.
Okay. Oh, thank you. My name is Jeannette Mukangango from EMS Research Innovation Center. I'm going to address my question to Eric from REMA and Caroline from GGGI. My question is, how climate finance support the use of green bond and carbon market to make climate finance more effective and fair in journey to net zero emission? Thank you.
Thanks for the discussion. I'm Luis Omano from National Council of Science and Technology. Mine is not a question, but I think it's a suggestion. Since morning, there have been this discussion about the available platform. So maybe one also say how researchers are aware of this platform. And then from REMA, Ministry of Environment, you have been just, okay, researchers need to register their publication. I think since there is no maybe direct coordination and the kind of incentives for researchers, their time effort to register this, it's a very complicated, and you may not find actually those publications, but it's a suggestion. How can you explore this emerging technology? Like the platform is integrated with other publishing house, like Web Science and other high-ranked journal. So that we use intelligent system like AI and with some keywords, maybe University of Rwanda, then the portal itself can just take that publication from that international, it's a suggestion from REMA and also Ministry of Environment. Otherwise, you may find that publications are there, but a researcher to have time to register, upload the publication, yeah, it's a challenge. Thank you.
One more.
Yes, there is another one.
Yes, thank you for this moment. My name is Boniface Byiringiro. I'm consultant and a young researcher. So my question will be directed to panelists. Like, say, you made a discussion on collaborative measures between the policymakers, but we forget the consumer of the data. I mean the local communities and the farmers. So is there any measure or necessity for local communities so that they can work based on a data available, data-driven solution for climate mitigation? The second question is highlight is there any bridge partnership between researchers and the policymakers and even the local communities? Yeah, that's my question. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. I think the panelists can go ahead and answer. The first question was REMA, then GGGI. The second question, maybe Beth, you can answer. Then the third one, anyone can answer.
Yes, the question from Jeanette Ames, how climate finance here in the net emission using. This is a very tough one, but I will try to answer this, explaining how the carbon market can help in net zero emission. So we are having a target to achieve through our NDC, and there is what we call a condition and unconditioned mechanism. So one of these is the only one that can be used if you have not yet reached your emission. At a certain point, you can't sell your unconditioned measures and target. So in the carbon market, what can normally help in achieving the net zero is you can buy the emission from one country that can compensate your own emission in the country. So that when we have that emission that has, if we say it's coming from X country to Rwanda, for example, or Rwanda need to sell his emission to another country through an agreement, there is a different process to go through, but the end result is our emission we are selling today are helping to also investing in projects that are climate resilient, that will help in mitigating or adapting to the impact of the climate change. And then the other country that buy our emission will compensate their, we don't claim that emission on our NDC, on our target, but the buyer country who buys our emission will claim that on their emission to make sure that they reach their target. Today, most of the developed country are the one who have reached their, the roof of the emission. So they need to reduce more of their emission, and then they invest in a project in our countries, in a developing country, so that the emission that come from this country this project can be used for to claim for their emission reduction. But the same project are used in the country, in Rwanda, for example, to adapt or mitigate any climate impact. Despite that, we don't use that emission, but it's also reduce the impact. Whenever there is an issue, the climate issue in the country, we are not really affected because the project has already been there. If, for example, we say the next country invests in Rwanda for a forestation project, those afforestation projects, the emission coming from the afforestation project can be claimed by X country, but also help our country to mitigate any drought, any, if I may say, any drought or a flood or anything that will have happened if we don't have that project. So saying that the carbon market help in net zero, it depends. So the carbon market can facilitate the net zero for the buyer country to reach their emission reduction target. It also can also help in the country where we have, if I may say, we sell our emission, our condition part of the NDC, and then reinvest in some of the projects that can reduce our reduce our emission, and then reduce also our NDC target. So in nutshell, I may say that the carbon market and the climate finance contribute to achieve our target, but also can contribute to reach our net zero emission. I don't know if I explained a bit, so probably Caroline can chip in.
So I think Eric has said quite a lot, but maybe just to build on what he said, for countries, developing countries like Rwanda, they have a huge financing gap to help them meet their NDC targets, whether it's implementing mitigation or adaptation projects. So climate financing could be one avenue to have those projects off of the ground. And when we look specifically at carbon finance, especially under Article one avenue that we look at why carbon financing can be helpful is you might have projects that are too high risk for other sources of financing to come in. So maybe it's a new technology that you don't have in the country. And so whether you're looking at public financing, concessional financing, banks, all of that added together will still not be enough to make that project viable. So that's where carbon financing comes. That's the concept of additionality. Carbon financing comes to support projects that are not being able to be funded through other financing streams. So it can help take off those projects. Not any projects, we're looking at high hanging fruits projects, projects that will have high transformational impact, maybe high technology transfer, those type of projects.
Thank you. So I was going to address the comment, I think it was Louis from NCST, about getting researchers to put their data up. And Tade, you talked about that issue in the portal. And I'm really glad you mentioned that, Louis, because researchers, when we publish in a peer-reviewed journal, we aren't necessarily allowed to put our publications up. It's actually a really crazy issue, but because journal publishing companies are publishing our research in their articles, which they are spending money on, through this really crazy system, the researcher doesn't always have the right to put out their paper. So I can send it to you individually, and if the certain kind of publishing, if it was open access, for example, then I can put it up. Like you can put it up on your website or ResearchGate or somewhere else. But some of them, like one time I did publish something on I think ResearchGate, and the first author contacted me and said, oh my God, get that down quickly because we don't have permission through Nature or something. So you have to be kind of careful. And I think what Louis was saying from NCST is more valuable approach is to just have a list of the titles and the authors with contact, because researchers want people to use their research, and you can email or WhatsApp a researcher and they'll send you their paper. And that might be easier than filling up a web page with all of those PDFs and make it, because if you're hosting that, you host have to make sure that you're not putting up articles that you don't have copyright for, because then you can also get in trouble for it. So it could be really valuable to have links to the publisher or to the researcher so that they can share their articles. I think that would probably be the quickest way, and it just means a simple, in the system, a simple web opening where you just copy and paste the citation, and most of us also include the URL link, and then we can add just a little window to add your email or your WhatsApp link. That would be really effective. And I just wanted to mention one other thing about I think it was the last question about local communities and how they use data, and I really love that question. And I want to just give one example. I know that there are several projects for doing climate smart agriculture in the country. We have one in the center in partnership with C4 ECRAF and Rwanda Agriculture Board. And a large part of that project is working with farmers to learn about how to do climate smart agriculture. So adopting drought resistant crops, what is the role of biodiversity and soil fertility and resilience in agricultural systems, and the role of trees and agroforestry systems in being resilient to climate change. And we're not the only ones, there's other organizations doing that. So I do think that's happening, but I love the question because I think it's something we always need to be thinking about, and it's not a one-way street. It's not just that researchers are teaching in communities or enabling their research there, which is important, but also that researchers always also learn from communities about either what their research needs are or what they know about the system, because people are also observing climate change and observing biodiversity change, and it would be really great to really enable that two-way transfer of information. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, the time is not on our side, and I have to close the session from here, and we proceed for lunch. A round of applause to our panelists, please. Thank you very much. Yeah, it's a lunch time. So the lunch is going to be served at first floor down. And we will try, because now we wanted to catch up with time, we use 1 hour, then we will come back here at 2:30. Yeah, another announcement is if you were leaving today, not coming, I'm told you may leave your badge to desk